Do you know the most common and basic technical skills required to be a successful IT professional? Hi, my name is Nitin Kapse, and in this video, I'm going to talk about basic technical skills to achieve the mastery in IT field. So let's begin. So I have shared my screen, and in this screen you can see there are almost 7 skills which we require to be a successful person in the IT field. There is one additional skill, but for time being I'll keep it aside. So you need to master at least one programming language. You need to master the OOPS concepts also, because most of the programming languages nowadays are supported by the OOPS concept and they are generic across or most of the programming languages. Then there are certain advanced features related with programming language. So we will talk about that also, and you need to master those features also. And once you have the proper understanding of the programming language, its syntax, semantics, and OOPS and advanced programming language concept, then you need to learn and master the skill of design pattern. So suppose you have any functional skill, any requirement, and which you want to convert into actual implementation of the technical skill or programming language, that's where design patterns plays very important role. And most of the project are in everywhere as part of the backend system to storage to store your data. We use rdbms, so there are certain common rdbms databases. So you need to know at least one database in proper depth, and the sql programming language or sql query language which is used for querying the database, which is related with rdbms. Then it comes to the OS. So suppose you are from Windows platform or Linux platform. So there are certain common things which you need to know as part of the platform or operating system. And networking, there are some general concept related with networking. So if you know those concepts, then it is really helpful you to understand what is happening behind the scene, because most of the cases right now things are getting converted into distributed system. So instead of having just one machine in the back end, we have some bunch of machines and they will communicate with each other, and that's where knowing some basic concept related with networking really helps you to understand what is happening behind the scene. So let's begin with first programming languages. So in this particular stake, I have I have given most common programming languages. So if you go and see the educational system or most of the computer or IT or non-computer field, they will teach you C and C++ programming languages. No doubt you need to start learning C and C programming languages, especially if you are fresher, because most of the interviews nowadays also they will ask most of the questions related with C and C++ programming language. Then we have a Python, Java, JavaScript. So if you are planning to think something on the UI side, user interface side of web technology, that's where JavaScript plays very important role. Then we have a C Sharp, which is again very popular programming language. So if you are from Microsoft stack or Microsoft technology, that's where C Sharp plays very important role. Then we have a TypeScript. So TypeScript is similar to the JavaScript, means we can go with the combo like Java and JavaScript. And if you are from Microsoft background, then C Sharp and TypeScript is the combination. So it is similar to JavaScript when it comes to the Microsoft technology. Then we have a Ruby on Rail, which is again web development technology. Then there are new programming languages like Swift, which is very specific to iOS. Then Kotlin, suppose you are from mobile app development side, that too again on Android platform, that's where Kotlin framework or programming language plays very important role. Then PHP is again most common element used for the web development. Nowadays Google has come up with its own programming language, that is Go, and which is also getting pretty much good attention. And most of the people right now talking about data science, so it is preferable to know the Go also if you are planning to have your career on the data science. So Python has most of the things in place, but there are certain things which are being taught which are very close to the Go, and you can achieve more things there also as part of the data science. Then MATLAB is another programming language which is very useful for AI, ML, and some deep learning concepts. Suppose you want to do some image processing, audio, video kind of things. So MATLAB is your programming language. Then we have a Scala. Scala is object-oriented programming language also, and it is functional programming language also. So this functional aspect, which makes this Scala programming very unique. So same functional aspect you can apply for Python as well. And then R again is for some mathematical and data science activity, for which R is very popular. But nowadays, most of the cases, instead of using R, Python is a preferred programming language. And there are other set of languages also, but I have given here the most common programming language. So in short, when it comes to the programming language, suppose you are from embedded background where you want to write your drivers and some low level programming, C and C++ are your component. And if you are from data science and some platform engineering background, then Python should be your component. And web technology, no doubt, Java and JavaScript are very common and popular solutions or programming languages available. And when it comes to the Microsoft technology, we have this C# and TypeScript combination, which is similar to Java and JavaScript. And these are rest of the programming languages as I talk, which can help you to shape your career from programming language point of view. Now moving to the next component, which is about OOPS. So once you understand syntax and semantics related with programming languages, you can definitely move on to the OOPS concept. So again, those are very generic concept. Means even if you take Python or C++ or Java, these programming languages, which are object-oriented programming languages, so these concepts remain common. So abstraction, encapsulation, polymorphism. In polymorphism, again, you will have overriding and overloading, and inheritance is again core part of any OOPS programming language. Okay, so you need to master these components as well. Now moving to some advanced features related with programming language. In advanced features, we have a collection classes and multi-threading, some error and exception handling, socket programming. It is very good to know the socket programming as well, because when we design client server architecture or master worker architecture, so everything over the network, and that communication happens via some port number, and that's where this socket programming plays very important role. And suppose you want to develop some desktop kind of component, that's where knowing GUI framework is also very helpful. And once you develop your program, you need to test it as part of the unit testing. So there are certain frameworks which you need to know. So let's start with this collection classes. So every programming language, it has a common collection classes. So considering all these programming languages, I have listed some of the collection classes here, like array, array list, map, hash map, set, queue, vector, and there are other collection classes also for each programming language. So in order to master any programming language, you need to master the collection classes and their understanding. Okay, then multi-threading, as I said. So if you want to achieve really next level in your programming skills and knowledge, you need to understand the multi-threading concept. And once you have proper understanding of all these things, exception handling and error handling is very, very important feature, because when you execute your program and something goes wrong, that's where this error handling and exception handling plays very important role to backtrack and fix those bugs in your code. And as I mentioned, if you want to do some desktop kind of applications, where GUI framework plays very important role. And these are some of the frameworks which I have mentioned. Those are related with Java specifically. But for each programming language, there are different frameworks. For C#, there could be some other set of classes, and we need to master those classes also as part of GUI framework. But nowadays, if you talk, we have very less work on the desktop component. Everything is on the website. So that's where I made it optional. So whatever you see it in a bold font here, those are mandatory skill, and you can take this as an optional, but good to know in our case. Then unit testing, it is very important. So again, whatever frameworks I have mentioned here as part of the unit testing, those are related with Java. But again, if you go and see specific services, they have their own unit testing framework. So you have to understand those testing framework in order to master your programming skills. So once you understand this programming thing and their advanced features and everything, you need to go for the design patterns. So design patterns are very important when you want to convert your functional skills into actual technical skills. So there are three types of design patterns. One is creational design pattern, structural design pattern, behavioral design pattern. So let's see what are other types in case of creational design patterns. So we have factory design pattern, abstract design pattern, singleton, prototype, builder, and object pool. These are the common creational design pattern. What and how to use this design pattern, you have to go into next level of depth in understanding all this design pattern. Then there are structural design pattern where we have adapter, bridge, composite, decorator. Decorator is again very common feature you will see in case of Python and Java programming. Then we have facade and proxy design patterns as part of the structural design pattern. Then there are behavioral design pattern. So in that we have chain of responsibility, command design pattern, interpreter, iterator, mediator, memento, observer, state, and strategy and template design pattern. So you need to understand this design pattern, how to use them to convert your functional requirement into actual class designing and its implementation. Okay, so that's where this design pattern makes your code more reusable and more extensible, so you can easily accommodate any changes using this design pattern. So once you understand the design pattern and technicality, you need to master at least one RDBMS database. So when it comes to the RDBMS, the most cases it is a common language, that is SQL. So you need to understand all the basic syntax related with SQL, a join, trigger, function. So these are common things related with SQL, and you need to master those objects. When I say object means trigger is an object, table is an object, column is an object again. So you need to understand all the nitty-gritties related with SQL programming. And in SQL also we have various type of databases. So the most common is MySQL. So if you are from open source background, so MySQL is very popular. But again, the Oracle presence is very wide and it's very efficient. And if you are from Microsoft background, then MS SQL should be your RDBMS database. And suppose you want to do some lightweight operation, that's where SQLite is very popular. For IBM, we have DB2 database. From open source community, again we have Apache Derby database, and Postgres also gaining lots of popularity these days. So these are some of the RDBMS databases. So at least you need to know SQL programming and one database in a proper fashion in order to execute your SQL queries. So either Oracle, MySQL, MS SQL. So if you are from Microsoft background, definitely you go and learn MS SQL. So this is something RDBMS. Now coming to the sixth component in the list, which is platform or operating system. So I have divided the operating system in three bits and pieces, which is Linux, Windows, and Mac OS. So mostly if you ask me, most of the application we deploy on the Linux operating system, or even take the mobile technology and Android and rest of the operating system, they are from the Linux origin, means their base is kernel is Linux. So what I feel personally, if you are from non-Microsoft background, then you should learn Linux compulsory. And in Linux, again, there are certain set of basic commands. So you need to master those basic commands. And one step ahead, if you want to go and use the Linux properly, you need to master the Linux scripting or shell scripting. Then in Linux, we have various types of editor like VI, VIM, Vim, gedit or Nano. So in olden days, we were using VI editor popularly, but right now gedit and Nano editor, they are a little bit user friendly and very much popular. So these things you need to master. When it comes to the Linux, we have two distribution of Linux, or even in operating system, there are generally two types of distribution. One is desktop distribution and another is server distribution. So desktop distribution is for day-to-day usage. So we use Windows operating system, right? Windows 7. So that is desktop version. So I'll talk more about that in Windows, but in order to understand it in Linux context, I'm giving the example of Windows here. So in case of Linux operating system, desktop distribution is Debian. So most of the cases, if you are using Ubuntu, it is a desktop inclined version of the Linux. And nowadays Linux Mint is also there. So these are all origin of desktop distribution of Linux. Then there is a server part where we have a Fedora, REHL, and open source distribution of Linux is also there. That is CentOS, and there are few more distribution like OpenSUSE and Android. Android is mainly used for mobile computing. So you need to master at least one distribution here and these common things in order to gain the mastery of OS and operating system platform. Now coming to the second part, in Windows, if you are working in Microsoft technology or using Windows platform, you need to know some basic DOS command. Then if you want to go really one step advanced, then in case of Windows, we have a PowerShell scripting. So you need to master that. And in Windows, we have various editor, but again, when it comes to the Microsoft Office is very popular. So that's where we need to know the usage of Excel, Word, and PowerPoint presentation. And again, on Windows platform, I like this Notepad++ editor very much because it makes your life very easy. So I'll highly recommend to learn the Notepad++ if you are from Windows background. Again, in Windows, we have two distribution of desktop operating system. One is XP, desktop OS, and server OS. In desktop OS, we have XP, Windows 7, Windows 8, and latest is Windows 10. And when it comes to the deployment of actual applications, we generally go for the server operating system. So in case of Microsoft, we have 2019 as the latest version, and one more is there, 2020, which is the more latest one in case of Windows server operating system. And in Windows also, one step ahead means in the Microsoft technology, we have Windows Mobile, and that's where we have a separate operating system for Windows Mobile, that is Windows 10 Mobile. So this is something related with Microsoft technology and Windows operating system. But again, nowadays Mac OS and Apple Mac books are very popular. So again, Mac OS is using the Linux kernel. So whatever we do using Linux, more or less same things applicable to the Mac OS, but on top of that, they have their own customization. So we need to take care of those part. I haven't used Mac OS too much, so I didn't mention too many things here, but it has the same kernel as that of Linux. So these are the things related with operating system. So suppose you are on a Mac technology stack, so you need to do and learn all the things related with Apple technology stack as per your job and technical requirement. Okay, so that is again separate proprietary kind of technical stack. Now coming to the last component in the list in order to master your technical skills in IT field, that is networking. So in networking means whatever we do as part of the software development, ultimately it goes via some hardwares, right? And how those hardware work in the back end, if you know, that is really help you to understand and program your things in a proper manner. So that's where I mentioned this networking, and in that you need to know the network topology. I mean, how LAN WAN setup is done in the back end, and how the communication happens in the back end. Then there is very important aspect, which is network security, means data at the rest, data at the flow. So those things you need to understand. Then LAN WAN, this is actually a metropolitan area network. And again, you need to know all these devices and how they communicate with each other, like network interface card. Then hub is there, switch is there, router is there, bridge is there. Then gateway, if you go for enterprise kind of setup, you will find the gateway and how this gateway is set up and how it communicates in the backend. That helps you to understand the backend protocol communication and its execution. Then repeater is another networking device which you need to learn. And as part of the networking, if suppose you understand how the IP address resolution happens in the backend, what is name servers, domain name server, so that again gives you edge in terms of understanding of networking concept and what is happening behind the scene when you work on the distributed platform. Then TCP/IP, which is very common protocol at the low level use to transport data from one machine to another machine. So having a little bit high level understanding of this TCP/IP protocol is very important to gauge the technical skills in the IT field. Then OSI model, how the OSI model and 7 layers are there, so how they work. So if you have that understanding, it really helps you to correlate your technical things while doing your day-to-day job. Then another important parameter is also involved apart from all these 7 components, which is your security. So again, in security, there are lots of things. Actually, it is not one thing when it comes to the security, but at high level, at the basic level, you need to know this common concept: authentication, authorization. If you know Kerberos, well and good. Then how the secure layer communicate when it comes to the TLS and SSL communication, how that certificate is configured, and how the data transfer from one machine to another machine using SSL protocol or TLS protocol. If you have that understanding, then it is well and good. Okay. So these are all technical skills which you need to master in order to perform your day-to-day job in a better way. Okay. So those were the most common technical skills you need to know in order to perform your job up to the satisfaction. If you know all these basic things, then it will make your life while doing the troubleshooting or even while doing the development of your piece of code. And that's where having these skills is very important nowadays. Okay, whether you are in development project or support project, but knowing these skills is very important when you are playing with the actual code. Okay, so from this video, can you put in the comment section which programming language? You can mention 1 or maximum 2 programming languages, not more than that, which programming language you want to learn or you are working on. Then you can mention at least one database in which you want to go in a depth. It can be MySQL, Oracle, MS SQL, and definitely if you are from Microsoft background, so you need to mention the tech stack of Microsoft only. And in operating system also, if you mention exactly which distribution of the operating system you want to work and achieve the depth. Means if it is a Linux, then you have to mention REHL or CentOS. So mention that one operating system in the comment section. So in short, you have to mention 3 things: 1 or 2 maximum programming language which you want to achieve the mastery, then at least 1 RDBMS database, and 1 distribution of the OS in the comment section. So this is all about basic technical skills in order to achieve the mastery in IT field. If you like my video, please share, comment, and subscribe to my channel, Progressive Nitin. Thanks for listening.